Black woman removed from plane. Seconds later, pilot gets a call from Washington. You need to get off this plane, ma'am. Now. The voice was cold, clipped, coming from a tall white flight supervisor named Lisa Brantley. She stood rigid at the front of the first-class cabin, arms crossed, a forced smile stretched over tightly pressed lips. Behind her, two uniformed security officers moved closer. Dr. Maya Ellis blinked up from her seat, confused but calm. "Excuse me? You're not on the manifest for first class," Lisa snapped, eyes scanning Maya's modest outfit. Dark jeans, a navy cardigan, natural curls pulled into a low puff, and a canvas satchel tucked neatly under the seat. Maya's brows drew together. "I scanned my boarding pass twice. It cleared both times." One of the officers reached for her arm. "Ma'am, we're not going to ask again." Her 10-year-old daughter, Naya, sitting next to her, clutched her mother's hand. "Mommy, what's happening?" "It's all right, baby," Maya whispered, forcing calm into her voice. "Everything's all right." But everything was far from all right. Half the first-class cabin was watching now. Some with curiosity, others with annoyance, and a few with that look Maya had grown too familiar with, suspicion masked in silence. "I'll show you my boarding pass," Maya said, standing slowly and reaching into her bag. She pulled out her phone and displayed the digital ticket. "Flight 217 to San Diego, seat 2A. Lisa barely glanced at it before shaking her head. "It must be fake. You don't match the profile." "The profile?" Maya echoed. Lisa hesitated. "You don't look like someone who'd purchase this seat." A gasp escaped from a nearby passenger. There it was. No need for subtlety when you thought you had power behind you. Without another word, Maya took a breath and turned to Nia. "Sweetheart, I want you to stay calm. Stay right here. Don't move." The officer stepped in and escorted Maya down the aisle as whispers rippled across the cabin. Someone near the back pulled out a phone and began recording. As they reached the jet bridge, Maya caught sight of Lisa whispering into a walkie-talkie with a smug grin. But just as the security officers began leading Maya toward the terminal, a voice cut through the radio Lisa held. "Hold position, immediately." Lisa froze. Static crackled. "This is Commander Jackson at the Pentagon. Confirm. Did you just remove Colonel Maya Ellis from Delta Flight 217? The entire jet bridge went silent. Lisa's face went pale. "Say again?" she asked, her voice suddenly 2 octaves higher. "I said," the voice repeated, measured and deadly calm, "you just ejected a U.S. Army colonel, senior advisor to National Defense Command, mid-boarding. Stand down. We're en route." Maya didn't flinch. She didn't have to. The universe had just taken the microphone. The officer holding her arm let go. "Ma'am, we didn't know." Maya turned slowly, locking eyes with Lisa. "You didn't care to know," she said, her voice cool as stone. 12 hours earlier. Maya zipped up her duffel bag, pausing to glance out the window of her townhouse in Arlington. The capital skyline glimmered under a pale sunrise. On the kitchen island sat her military ID, a travel pass signed by the Joint Chiefs, and a pair of tickets, commercial flight to San Diego, front of the plane. "Mom, do we have to fly today?" Nia asked sleepily from the hallway. "I've got a meeting at the base tomorrow," Maya said, kneeling down to Nia's level. "Remember, it's just for a couple days." "Why don't you take the private one?" Maya smiled. "Because sometimes it's good to see how the world treats you when it doesn't know your name." Nia tilted her head, confused. "You'll understand later," Maya said, giving her a kiss on the forehead. The truth was, Maya had received a confidential tip. A whistleblower within the airline reported repeated cases of profiling black and brown passengers during boarding and seating arrangements, particularly in first class. Maya had seen it happen to soldiers under her command, to friends. Once, even to her brother. So this trip wasn't just about strategy briefings, it was personal. She'd chosen to fly under the radar. No security detail, no press. Just a quiet test of how the system worked, or didn't, when it thought no one was watching. At the airport, the terminal bustled with the usual rhythm of late afternoon travelers, announcements echoing over loudspeakers, TSA lines snaking past vending machines, kids tugging at rolling suitcases. Maya stayed low-key. She wore no insignia, no military tags. Her presence didn't draw stares, which is exactly what she wanted. Until she scanned her boarding pass. Twice. The green light flashed both times, no error, no alert. But the gate agent, a young man named Kyle, raised an eyebrow as he handed her the slip. Seat 2A, that's... He didn't say it, but the meaning was there. Maya just nodded. Problem? Kyle looked her up and down. No, ma'am. You're good. She knew the look. The subtle, you don't belong moment, dressed up in politeness. Nia skipped beside her, happily unaware. As they settled into their seats, Maya leaned back and closed her eyes. The mission had begun. And then the shadow arrived. Lisa, with her clipboard, her power stance, and her assumptions. You sure you're in the right seat? She asked, without smiling. I'm positive. Lisa had walked away then, but Maya knew she'd be back. The wheels were already turning. Now, back in real time, the entire gate area buzzed with shock. A security team from the Department of Defense had arrived. Badges flashed, orders barked. Lisa stood frozen, breath shallow, watching as Maya calmly walked back toward the jet bridge. The officer at her side whispered, Ma'am, the Pentagon liaison is requesting immediate debrief. I'll get to it, Maya said. But first, I'm getting my daughter and my seat. As she stepped onto the aircraft again, all eyes turned. Whispers turned into murmurs. Someone clapped. Then another. She returned to seat 2A, where Nia leapt into her arms. Are we going home, Mommy? Maya smiled, brushing a curl behind her daughter's ear. No, baby. We're just getting started. Maya's return to her seat was met with silence that hummed louder than any applause. The passengers weren't sure whether to look at her or look away. Nia clung to her hand tightly, eyes darting between faces. Maya kept her chin up as she settled into seat 2A again. Her calm exterior was unshaken, but inside her pulse was pounding. She had trained for high-stakes missions overseas, faced hostile fire, commanded troops through chaos. But nothing ever quite prepared her for the cold hostility of being treated like a suspect in your own country. A flight attendant with auburn hair and a nervous smile approached them cautiously. Dr. Ellis, she said quietly, can I offer you and your daughter anything? A drink? Snacks? Maya didn't miss the tremble in the woman's voice. It wasn't guilt, it was fear. Something big had happened, and word was spreading fast. We're fine, Maya replied, not unkindly. Thank you. Nia leaned in close and whispered, Mommy, why are they all staring at us? Because they just found out they made a mistake, Maya said. Some mistakes are loud. The intercom crackled as the captain's voice filled the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a brief delay due to technical coordination. We'll update you shortly. Thank you for your patience. Maya knew that tone. She had used it herself in combat briefings. Calm, steady, but layered with tension. As the minutes dragged on, Maya pulled out her phone. No messages from DC, but a familiar encrypted contact blinked online. She opened a secure chat and typed fast. Call from Pentagon rang through to flight. Lisa Brantley, EOS flight supervisor. Will escalate? The response came back seconds later. Yes. Need full incident recording. Intel already instructed. You okay? Yes. Daughter shaken. Will continue as planned. A pause. We're watching. Don't stand down. Maya put the phone away just as a man across the aisle leaned in. I just want to say, I saw what happened, he said, voice low. That wasn't right. She looked at him, mid-40s, white, business casual, wedding ring. He didn't look like the kind who spoke up much. I appreciate that, Maya replied. He nodded, then sat back, folding his hands tightly in his lap. Back in the operations room at Delta's Atlanta hub, Lisa Brantley was pacing furiously, phone clutched to her ear. This is absurd, Tony. No one told me we had VIPs on board, much less military officers. Tony Carville, the regional manager, sounded exasperated. You don't need a memo to treat someone like a human being, Lisa. I followed protocol. Her name didn't flag on the screen. How was I supposed to know who she was? Tony's voice dropped cold. The Pentagon knew. Now they're asking questions. And guess who's on the report? Silence. You're lucky if you walk out of this with a jewel. I suggest you prepare a statement. Now. Lisa hung up, her hands shaking. She glanced at the screen. A live feed of the flight's internal camera was being streamed to headquarters. They were watching everything. And her mistake? It was no longer a mistake. It was a full-blown scandal. Meanwhile, up in the air, Maya leaned her head back and exhaled slowly. She thought about calling her brother Andre, a civil rights attorney in Chicago, but decided against it. Not yet. He'd find out soon enough, and when he did, he'd raise hell. Do you think they'll do it again? Nia asked quietly. Maya turned to her. What do you mean? Kick someone else off the plane, just because they look like us. Maya swallowed hard. Maybe. But we're going to make sure that next time it costs them more. Nia nodded. You're like a superhero, Mommy. Maya smiled faintly. No capes, just facts. When they landed in San Diego, the scene was surreal. 2 black SUVs waited just beyond the gate. A pair of sharply dressed military officers stood in position, backs straight, eyes scanning the crowd. The captain's voice returned over the intercom. Colonel Ellis, please remain seated. You'll be escorted from the aircraft. Gasps echoed through the cabin. Maya stood, adjusted her cardigan, and took her daughter's hand. As they walked toward the exit, some passengers began clapping. Quiet at first, then louder, with a few standing. The businessman across the aisle gave her a respectful nod. Lisa wasn't there to see it. She was already under review. Outside, one of the officers saluted sharply. Ma'am, transportation is ready. Intelligence Command has requested full debrief at Naval Station Miramar. Siren protocol has been activated. Maya blinked. Siren, that wasn't the plan. There's been movement. The whistleblower you were tracking, he surfaced, and he named names, including someone at Homeland. Maya glanced at Nia, then back at the officer. Then we go now. They stepped into the SUV, the doors closed, and the convoy moved. Behind them, a dozen phones buzzed with headlines breaking across the country. Black woman ejected from plane, identified as high-ranking U.S. Army colonel. Pentagon responds. Maya didn't smile. There was too much work ahead for that. The next morning, Maya stood in front of the large mirror inside a secure conference room at Naval Station Miramar. She adjusted the silver pin on her lapel, subtle but unmistakably signaling her rank. Gone were the jeans and cardigan. Today, she wore her full-service uniform. Nia was safe, resting in temporary housing under military care, attended by 2 trained aides. But Maya couldn't rest. Not with what had unfolded in the past 18 hours. Colonel Denise Harper, her longtime colleague and now commanding officer at Miramar, entered the room briskly. Her face was grim, holding a manila folder that looked far too thick for comfort. We've got a problem, Denise said. Maya arched a brow. I thought I was the problem. Denise didn't smile. She laid the folder flat and opened it. The passenger manifest from your flight. You weren't the only target. Maya's expression shifted. What are you saying? There was someone else on that plane. A name flagged in connection to a federal anti-corruption probe. You were collateral. They needed a distraction to pull him quietly. Maya processed this slowly. So the whole scene, me being dragged off, the pilot's panic, the cameras, it wasn't just racism. Oh, it was racism, Denise corrected, but it was also manipulation. Someone used it. Denise flipped to a photo clipped inside the folder. A balding man in a navy blue suit, bland, forgettable, dangerous. Charles Linford, former DHS consultant, been off the radar for a year. He boarded in Atlanta, sat 4 rows behind you, disembarked during the chaos. Maya's jaw clenched. And no one stopped him? He walked right past security as everyone was watching you get escorted off the plane. It hit her like a punch. They'd used her, used Nia, weaponized public bias to cover an exfiltration. Maya stepped back, fury boiling beneath the surface. Denise continued. And there's more. Your name wasn't left off the manifest by accident. Someone scrubbed it, internally. That's not just protocol failure. That's sabotage, Maya said, voice low. And we need to know why, and by who. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away, the fallout continued. At the Delta Regional Office in Atlanta, Lisa Brantley was sweating through a boardroom interview with 2 Pentagon investigators. I didn't know who she was, Lisa repeated. And if you had, one of the agents asked, I still would have followed security protocol. Which protocol exactly? He pressed. The one that permits you to remove a decorated Army colonel traveling with a child based on a complaint about her presence? Lisa squirmed. She was disruptive. She questioned authority. That's not illegal, the second agent snapped. That's not even suspicious. The first agent closed his notebook slowly. Let's be clear. You're being investigated not just for misconduct, but for potential collusion. Lisa blanched. With who? They didn't answer. Back in San Diego, Maya wasn't waiting for the system to fix itself. She paced inside the operations room, now fully briefed on Linford's flight path. It hadn't ended in Los Angeles. He had transferred onto a private charter bound for Anchorage, Alaska, using a false name. He's heading for a border slip, Denise muttered, scanning the screen. Probably planning to cross into Canada and disappear. Not on my watch, Maya said. Prep the team. I want to be wheels up by noon. Denise hesitated. You sure you want to be the one to bring him in, after what happened? Maya's stare cut through the room. I want to look the people behind this in the eye. I want them to know we don't go quiet. Not anymore. A junior officer peeked into the room. Ma'am, we just got confirmation. Linford had contact with 2 names inside Homeland Security. One of them is still active, high level. Maya and Denise exchanged a look. This is bigger than we thought, Denise said quietly. Maya stepped closer to the screen. Then we'll make the truth even louder. In a quiet part of town, a viral video was making rounds on social media. It showed Maya, exhausted but composed, walking off the plane with Nia, flanked by officers. But someone had added a voiceover. This is what power looks like, grace under fire. And the moment America remembered that justice doesn't wear one color or take orders from silence. Within hours, the video was trending. Civil rights groups picked up the story. Lawmakers began making calls. And Maya Ellis, once unknown to the public, was suddenly a national name. She didn't care about that. All she cared about was the next move. And this time she was calling the shots. The propellers of the C-40 military jet hummed low above the Alaskan horizon. Inside, Colonel Maya Ellis stood in the aisle, gripping the armrest of her seat, eyes narrowed on the intelligence report in her hand. Her mind raced through every detail. Anchorage, an abandoned seaport warehouse. Linford was already there. If they moved fast enough, they could intercept before he vanished again, this time possibly for good. I still can't believe they scrubbed your name from the passenger manifest, Sergeant Leo Harris muttered across from her. That's high-level interference. Maya looked up from the file. Which is exactly why I'm here in uniform this time. Let them try and ignore that. Leo smiled faintly. They won't. Not after the president's office called the airline and asked why one of their own was thrown off a commercial flight without cause. Too little, too late, she replied, but it's a start. He leaned forward, voice low. You're aware Linford may not come quietly, right? If someone in Homeland is protecting him, then we expose them all, Maya said, her voice like steel. As the jet descended into the chilly dusk, Maya's phone buzzed. It was a secure line. Maya speaking. A female voice responded. Confident, cool. This is Commander Elaine Preston, FBI Field Operations. I've just received word that Linford isn't working alone. There's chatter that he's carrying classified disks, names, connections, evidence. Someone powerful doesn't want that falling into the wrong hands. Maya's eyes sharpened. Which means we're not just chasing a fugitive, we're sitting in the middle of a national cover-up. That's the shape of it, Preston replied. And you need to know, there's a leak in your team. Someone's feeding Linford's moves back up the chain. Maya froze. Her eyes darted toward the soldiers on board, then to Leo. Preston continued. He's already changed location. Warehouse is cold. He's booked on a seaplane from Kodiak Island. Wheels up at Aero 400. Maya clenched her jaw. Then we're changing course. She hung up, turned to Leo, and barked, Pilot, redirect. Kodiak Island. We move now. By 3:12 a.m., Maya's boots hit wet gravel on the coast. Wind whipped at her face as she stepped onto the narrow dock, flanked by Leo and 2 field agents. A rusty float plane sat idling at the edge, its propeller spinning lazily. A single figure stood next to it, half-shrouded by the fog. Linford, Maya shouted. The figure turned. But it wasn't Linford. It was Lisa Brantley, the former gate supervisor from the Atlanta flight. What the hell? Leo muttered. Lisa raised her hands, trembling. I didn't know where else to go. Maya stepped forward, voice sharp. You're supposed to be in custody. I escaped, Lisa stammered. I had to. They're going to kill him, and me. I have proof. He wasn't running. He was trying to deliver information. They set you up to cause a diversion so he could slip out unnoticed. Maya hesitated. Who's they? Lisa reached into her coat, too fast, guns cocked behind Maya. Don't shoot, she shouted. Lisa's hand trembled as she pulled out a flash drive. She dropped it on the dock. This. He gave it to me, said if anything happened to him, this would tell the story. Maya picked it up, eyes locked on Lisa. Where is he now? Lisa's voice cracked. Gone. A boat picked him up 2 hours ago, but not before he told me. Someone from the Department of Justice was helping him. Someone very high up. Maya's heart thudded. If that was true, then this went even deeper than she imagined. Suddenly, a shot rang out. Lisa dropped, screaming, a bullet tearing through her thigh. Chaos erupted. Maya and Leo dove for cover as more shots cracked from the trees. Ambush! Leo shouted. Get her out of here! Maya yelled, dragging Lisa behind a stack of shipping crates. Another bullet hit the metal beside Maya's head. She grabbed her sidearm and scanned the tree line. 3 shooters, West Ridge, one of her agents called. Suppress and flank left, Maya ordered. They returned fire, a symphony of cracks and echoes bouncing through the misty air. Within minutes, the gunfire ceased, 2 attackers subdued and 1 vanished into the woods. Maya crouched beside Lisa, pressing a field dressing to her wound. You still think you were just some gate supervisor? Maya muttered. Lisa's eyes welled with pain and regret. I didn't know what I was part of, until it was too late. Maya looked down at the flash drive, now smeared with blood and seawater. Whatever was on it, someone was willing to kill for it, and she wasn't about to let them win. Back at the Miramar Command Center, the decrypted contents of the flash drive blinked across the screen. Names, transfers, military-grade weapons linked to private contractors, Bribes. A private fund traced directly to a sitting congressman. The truth was uglier than Maya had imagined. Denise stood behind her, silent. Maya spoke without turning. I want every name on this list cross-checked, and I want federal protection for Lisa Brantley. She's not clean, Denise reminded her. She came forward. She tried to make it right, Maya said. That still counts for something. She walked out of the room, heart pounding. For the first time, she didn't feel like a soldier cleaning up after the system. She felt like a fuse had been lit, and the explosion was coming. The Pentagon conference room was dead silent, but the air inside was electric. Colonel Maya Ellis stood at the head of the long oak table, arms crossed, her expression carved in stone. A dozen suits stared back at her. CIA, FBI, DOJ, Air Force brass, and two senators with carefully blank faces. Behind her, a massive screen displayed a still image from the decrypted flash drive. A blurry security photo of a man in uniform handing off a duffel bag outside a nondescript warehouse. The contents of that bag, as revealed just hours earlier, included encrypted military procurement files, unreported cash transfers, and emails connecting Congressman Alan Wexler to a clandestine weapons routing operation stretching from Panama to Syria. Wexler himself was not in the room, but his people were. Maya leaned in. What I'm holding here, this isn't conspiracy theory. This is conspiracy. And the only reason any of you are hearing about it now is because someone tried to silence a man who was trying to expose it and shot me out of the sky in the process. General Maddox cleared his throat. Colonel, we're not denying that there are serious allegations here, but we can't go public until we verify the data. The implications, Maya's voice rose. You mean the fact that an elected official has been using federal military supply lines to move arms for profit? That a pilot and a gate agent were used as pawns to discredit me and create a diversion? Colonel, interjected Special Counsel Vickery from DOJ, there's a process to these things. Right. A process that's allowed Linford to disappear again. A process that nearly got a whistleblower killed last night. A process that's compromised. She dropped the flash drive onto the table with a snap. Vickery flinched. I'm not asking for permission, she said quietly. I'm notifying you. I'm taking this to the Inspector General. And if this gets buried, I'll go to the press. Either we fix this from the inside or I drag it into daylight myself. No one spoke. No one needed to. Maya turned and walked out of the room. Outside the Pentagon, the sky was a sharp winter blue. Denise awaited by the black SUV, phone to her ear. He's in D.C., she said, sliding into the passenger seat beside Maya. Checked into a safe house under a fake name. One of our field contacts spotted him. Maya gripped the steering wheel. Then we move now. I want Linford alive, no mistakes. The safe house was tucked in a forgotten corner of northeast D.C., 3 blocks from an old industrial rail line. Unmarked cars blocked both ends of the street as Maya and a team of tactical agents surrounded the building. Her breath fogged as she gave the order. Go quiet. No lights. Sweep room by room. Inside, the house was stripped down, old carpet. No furniture beyond a mattress on the floor and an open laptop blinking faintly. Maya entered first, weapon drawn, heartbeat steady. In the back room, a man sat calmly on a chair, hands raised. Colonel Ellis, he said, took you long enough. Maya didn't lower her gun. Linford. He was older than she remembered and face thinner, beard peppered with gray. But the defiance was still there. You've got one chance to come clean, she said. One. He smiled faintly. I already did. That drive Brantley had, that wasn't everything. That was bait. I knew it would get their attention. The real files already delivered. To who? Someone who isn't on your list yet. Maya narrowed her eyes. Who else is involved? His smile faded. They tried to kill me, Maya. After everything I did for this country. I gave you that flash drive because I trusted you'd understand. This fight's bigger than both of us. I wanted to burn it down. Not just the people. The machine. Maya lowered her gun slightly. You had other options. And you had the privilege of believing in systems that never worked for me. A beat passed. Then he added, "They're coming, you know. You just poked a hole in something real dark." She didn't reply. Instead, she cuffed him, handed him off to agents, and stood alone in the empty hallway. That night, back at her temporary operations HQ, Maya stared at her phone. It buzzed again. "Unknown number." She answered. "Colonel Ellis," said a calm, firm voice. "This is Secretary Langston. The President would like a briefing. You'll be flown in tomorrow morning. We're not delaying this any longer." Maya exhaled slowly. Finally, change was beginning. Or at least the cracks had started to show. The cold bite of early morning air settled over Washington, D.C., as Colonel Maya Ellis stepped into the towering marble halls of the Eisenhower Executive Office building. Her breath was steady, her stride unshaken, but inside adrenaline raced like wildfire. She wasn't here for ceremony. She was here to pull the last thread and expose the whole damn thing. A staffer with a Bluetooth earpiece met her at the security checkpoint, eyes wide the moment he read her badge. "Colonel Ellis," he said, his voice too rehearsed, "you'll be joining the National Security Council in the Roosevelt Room. You've been cleared for a closed-door briefing." Maya gave a tight nod. "Lead the way." Inside the room, the heavy wood table gleamed under recessed lighting. Around it sat senior Pentagon brass, a White House policy advisor, and, at the far end, Secretary of Defense Eleanor Maddox. Her expression was unreadable. The president wouldn't attend. Not directly. But Maya knew this room was enough. Whatever happened next would ripple far beyond these walls. Secretary Maddox stood. "Colonel Ellis, I've reviewed your initial report. The intelligence recovered implicates key players in defense logistics, private military contractors, and a sitting congressman. We now understand you were removed from that plane under orders disguised as standard protocol." Maya's jaw tightened. "And the shooting?" There was a long pause. "The orders came from someone within Homeland," Maddox admitted, "but they were manipulated. The pilot received what appeared to be a valid directive. Your name was red-flagged in their system." "Someone forged a security alert in my name?" Maya snapped. "They spoofed Homeland?" "No," Maddox replied. "They were Homeland, but not on the books. We believe it was a ghost sub-agency operating under counter-terrorism protocols, remnants from a defunded surveillance program. It was never shut down. It just went dark." Maya leaned forward. "I want names." "You'll have them, but understand, these people don't disappear just because they're exposed. They retaliate." Maya's lips curled into a faint smirk. "So do I." Later that day, Denise met her in a nondescript parking garage beneath a federal annex building. She looked grim. "We've got movement," she said, sliding into the passenger seat of Maya's SUV. "Linford's associate, that IT guy, Brantley. He's missing. Vanished from a safe house in Reston. No signs of forced entry, but security footage shows 3 men entering his building at 2:47 a.m. None of them show up on facial recognition. Black bag operation," Maya muttered. "They're still scrubbing this clean." Denise pulled out a manila folder and opened it. Inside were surveillance photos, grainy shots of men in tactical gear, a white van with covered plates, a blurry image of someone resembling Brantley being dragged out the back. "They left a burner phone behind," Denise added. "Wiped clean, except for one thing. A calendar event set for tonight. Coordinates point to a hangar just outside Arlington Municipal Airport." Maya didn't hesitate. "Let's move." The hangar was abandoned, at least on paper. In reality, it was humming with quiet chaos. Maya and a strike team arrived just as 2 unmarked trucks were being loaded with crates, military crates, weapons, comms gear, and something she didn't expect: Mobile encryption kits typically reserved for high-level State Department operations. "Do not engage unless I say," she ordered. "We get eyes on everyone first." From the shadows, Maya moved in. Her heart pounded as she spotted him, Congressman Wexler, in a long gray coat, standing beside a man with a buzz cut and a Homeland ID badge clipped to his belt. She activated her mic. "Subject confirmed. Wexler on site, coordinating off-the-books military transport with unauthorized federal assets. All recorded." Just then, a voice behind her snarled, "Drop it!" Maya turned slowly, hands up. Two men had flanked her, one armed with a silenced pistol, the other with a taser. But Maya didn't flinch, because in the same second, floodlights exploded to life and federal agents swarmed the perimeter. FBI, Internal Affairs, Air Force, CID, they'd all been waiting for her signal. One of the gunmen panicked and fired. But Maya was faster. She tackled him just as the bullet went wide, slamming him into the cold concrete floor and cuffing his wrist with the zip tie from her belt. Chaos erupted. Wexler tried to run. He didn't get far. Maya marched toward him as agents surrounded him. "You really thought Washington wouldn't answer," she said coldly. "You messed with the wrong soldier." Wexler sneered. "You're just one colonel. You think this all changes because of you?" Maya leaned in close. "No, it changes because people like you finally ran out of places to hide." He was dragged away in silence. Back at headquarters, as dawn broke over D.C., Maya sat alone in a debriefing room, covered in sweat and dust. Denise appeared in the doorway. "You're gonna want to see this," she said, holding out a phone. On the screen was a live broadcast. "Breaking news," the anchor said. "Congressman Alan Wexler has been arrested on federal conspiracy and corruption charges following an undercover operation led by Colonel Maya Ellis of the U.S. Army." Maya looked down, her hands trembling. It was over. At least the first layer was, and as her phone buzzed again, a new number this time, she knew the system was finally listening. Maybe not willingly, but it was listening. Maya stood in the mirrored elevator of the Pentagon's South Wing, her reflection calm, composed, like nothing had just erupted in a hangar outside Arlington hours before. But inside, her nerves were fire. Every click of the elevator gears felt like a countdown. This wasn't just a debrief. It was an ambush waiting to happen. The door slid open. She stepped into the conference room, and there they were. Senior Command, two members of the Senate Armed Services Committee, a representative from Homeland Security, and seated at the far end, arms crossed and mouth curled in visible disdain, was General Bruce Harlan. He didn't rise. "Maya Ellis," he said, voice coated in condescension, "you've stirred up quite a storm." She moved to the head of the table. "Not stirred. Exposed." Senator Langley leaned forward. "We've read the field reports. We've seen the arrests. But you need to explain to us why your operation was kept off-book, why no formal authorization passed through Joint Command." "Because someone in Joint Command leaked my previous location," Maya said without blinking. "Someone greenlit the fake alert that nearly got me shot and removed from a plane. I was investigating a black-budget weapons channel, and someone in this very room was protecting it." Silence fell. Harlan scoffed. "You're making reckless accusations without a single—" Maya slammed a flash drive on the table. "Encrypted logs, satellite tracking, internal memos cross-signed by your personal aide, Colonel James Ritter, authorizing the movement of unmarked military-grade crates through private airports. I have signed affidavits from civilian techs hired to scrub the trail." Harlan's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. "You think I didn't know it was you?" Maya said, voice low, cutting. "You've been laundering equipment and funds through ghost contractors for over a year. And the moment I got too close, you used your reach to turn a Homeland algorithm against me. I was flagged as a threat to national security while trying to defend it." Langley looked visibly stunned. "General Harlan," she said. "Do you deny these allegations?" But Harlan didn't answer her. His gaze stayed on Maya, his voice dropping into something darker. "You should have stayed in the field, Ellis. You had a decent record. You could have retired with honor." Maya stared back, unflinching. "You mistook silence for weakness. That was your first mistake." Suddenly, an aide rushed into the room with a phone. "Ma'am," he said, handing it to Senator Langley, "it's from the office of the president. He wants this meeting halted immediately." Langley answered, listened for a moment, and nodded. She stood, fixing her eyes on Harlan. "General, you're to be detained immediately pending further investigation. Effective now, your security clearance is revoked." Harlan rose to protest, but two Pentagon police officers were already entering the room. "Get your hands off me," he barked. "Do you know who I am?" Maya stepped aside as they cuffed him. "You're the man who forgot who the uniform is supposed to serve." He was dragged out of the room, his dignity crumbling with each step. Later, Maya sat in a small office overlooking the Potomac. Denise entered, holding 2 coffees. "Ritter's in custody, trying to cut a deal. He says there are more. People embedded in DoD procurement, foreign interests even. This rabbit hole is endless." Maya accepted the coffee, but her eyes didn't leave the window. "You ever feel like winning one fight just shows you 10 more waiting?" "All the time," Denise said, smiling softly. "But you keep swinging. That's the job." There was a knock at the door. A young man in a suit peeked in. "Colonel Ellis," she turned, "you're expected at the White House at 1600 hours. The president wants to speak with you directly." Maya nodded, setting down the coffee. "Tell them I'll be there." As he left, Denise chuckled. "Look at you, getting presidential invites." Maya gave a dry smile. "Let's hope it's not a job offer." But beneath her sarcasm, the weight of it all pressed down. The arrests were real, the leaks confirmed. But the damage, some of it would never be undone. Innocent officers had been reassigned, security protocols abused. The system they all pledged to serve had been turned into a weapon, and she wasn't finished. Not yet. That evening, Maya stood in front of a mirror in her apartment, adjusting her uniform jacket. Her phone buzzed, a message from her mother. "Proud of you. Always." She took a breath. Tonight, she wasn't just a colonel, she was the proof that silence didn't mean submission. And as she buttoned the last gold-plated pin, she whispered to herself, "Let them know I'm coming." The room was dim, with just the soft glow of morning sun seeping through the Pentagon's east windows. Colonel Maya Ellis stood silently behind the lectern, dressed in her full Class A uniform, a small American flag pin gleaming beneath the rows of commendations on her chest. Her face was calm, unreadable, but behind her eyes was fire. Across the room, dozens of service members, government officials, and media personnel filled the seats. The investigation into General Harlan's corruption had exploded across national headlines. Ritter had flipped. 3 more names from defense procurement were indicted. The fallout was unprecedented. But this morning wasn't about the arrests. It was about something bigger. The press conference had been called by the Secretary of Defense himself, but at the last moment the podium was yielded to Maya. And now she stood center stage. "I wasn't supposed to be here," she said, voice steady, clear. "Not because of the enemy abroad, but because of the silence within." A hush fell over the room. 2 months ago, I was removed from a plane, not for carrying a weapon, not for threatening anyone. I was profiled. A black woman in civilian clothes, traveling alone, questioned for looking out of place in first class. The pilot didn't ask for credentials. The gate agent didn't ask for explanation. Security dragged me out, and none of them knew. I had just returned from briefing Special Operations Command. Whispers buzzed in the back. Maya continued. "I didn't flash my badge that day. I didn't scream my rank, because that's not the point. The point is, I shouldn't have to. Her voice cracked slightly, but she didn't stop. The uniform doesn't protect you from racism, the title doesn't shield you from injustice, and power doesn't mean anything if you only use it to protect yourself. She paused, letting the weight settle. I speak today not as a colonel, but as someone who was nearly silenced, someone who watched an entire system try to sweep the truth under a rug, stitched with medals and bureaucracy. She looked toward the cameras now, to every woman of color who's ever been doubted, to every service member who's had to choose between loyalty and truth, and to every ordinary American who wonders if justice actually works for them. I'm here to say it can, but only if we demand more. Thunderous applause erupted. Later that afternoon, Maya sat in the green room of a network studio watching live coverage of the press conference. The anchor's voice was electric. Colonel Maya Ellis has not only made history today as the first black woman to single-handedly expose a multi-million-dollar corruption ring inside the Pentagon, but her speech is already sparking calls for institutional reform. Her phone buzzed. A message from Denise. You just changed the game. Then another from her mother. You didn't just survive, you led. She smiled softly. But the moment was cut short when a producer poked in. Colonel, you're up in 2. Maya stood, straightened her jacket, and nodded. Let's do it. As she stepped onto the sound stage, cameras focused on her. She glanced around, catching the eye of a young black girl seated in the front row of the audience. She couldn't have been older than 12, wide-eyed, holding a notebook. Watching Maya like she was watching the moon land, Maya gave her a subtle nod. She wasn't just speaking for herself anymore. Back in D.C., in a federal courtroom, former General Harlan sat at the defense table. Stripped of his medals, his posture collapsed. Judge Ramsey read the charges. Conspiracy, obstruction, abuse of power. As the verdict was announced, guilty on all counts, Harlan turned toward the gallery, hoping for some kind of reaction, some sympathy. But there was none, just silence, the kind that follows justice. Weeks later, Maya walked through Arlington Cemetery. She stopped at a simple grave marker, saluted quietly. Lieutenant Marcus Ellis, 1972 to 2003. Honor without compromise. Her father. She knelt, brushing away the dust. They tried to take it from me, Dad, but I remembered what you taught me. Don't flinch. Don't fade. A soft breeze passed through the trees. As she stood to leave, her phone lit up again, this time from an unknown number. She answered. Colonel Ellis, this is President Carter. I'd like to personally thank you, and I was wondering if you'd be interested in heading a new initiative we're launching, one focused on institutional accountability within the military. Maya paused. I'm listening. To the audience watching, if you've ever felt silenced, doubted, or dismissed just because of who you are, remember the system only wins if you let it. Speak up, stand tall, fight smart. And if you believe in stories like Maya's, stories that matter, stories that challenge injustice, support this channel. Share this video, comment your thoughts. Because voices like hers deserve to be heard everywhere. We're just getting started.